Good morning from day 25, second day in the Sierras. Still not technically in the high Sierras. I don't think that'll be till tomorrow. But last night we slept at around 8,500 feet. Felt comfortable. Not too chilly or anything like that. There were us four, so me, Jocelyn, Vicky, and Cole, and then 6 other hikers showed up later. Just learned their names last night. Honestly, don't remember them. Today, the hope is 19 miles. If we're feeling good, we're starting at what I said, 8,500-ish feet. We're gonna climb above 10,500, drop back down to 9,000, then climb back up above 10,000, and somewhere along the descent again is where we'll plan on camping. The reasoning behind that 19 miles, because over the next 3 days we only have, I think, around 45 miles to cover, 45 point something or 46. So an average of 15-16 miles a day is needed. But if we do 19 miles today, that means we have about 12 miles into Chicken Spring Lake tomorrow morning or early afternoon, which is the first lake of the Sierras and apparently really pretty. So we can either opt to camp there or just spend 5 to 6 hours there hanging out, doing a cold plunge. The others probably will. I don't think I will. And just hanging out. So 19 miles today. I know this might seem silly, but seeing grass is amazing. Definitely nice to have greener vegetation in the Sierras. Made it to the top of the first climb. Hiked 5 miles so far today. We stopped at about 3 miles. I stopped with Vicky and Jocelyn to have some breakfast, trying out their schedule for the morning, and then kept hiking the next 2 miles to the top of the mountain, officially at 10,550 feet. And now we descend a couple thousand feet again, but can definitely tell higher elevation is harder to catch my breath, but not having any other altitude issues. Last summer I did a hike in Utah called the Uinta Highline Trail, and it stayed above 9,000 feet the whole time, and I did experience some slight altitude sickness with nausea and lack of appetite. So I have been taking generic Diamox, a altitude sickness medication to help prevent that, and so far I'm feeling good. We were deprived of grass for so long. This makes my heart so incredibly happy to see. This reminds me a lot of the Uintas in Utah. I am sitting here for my second lunch. It's about 2 o'clock. I've hiked 14.7 miles and gained
3,694 feet, and plan to still have 4.3 miles to go and 840 feet to gain. So obviously way more than halfway done. I think 2/3 or something. I don't know. I can't do the math. Today has been much more tiring. Yesterday was more gradual incline. Today has been 2 very steep hills. Over and done with one, and then about 2/3 up the second hill. So it's just been a little bit tough on my legs. They're feeling a little bit sore. My backpack I feel a little bit bruising around my hips. I don't think it's because of my new shorts. I think it's just because of the weight that is now resting on my hips. And I'm definitely going slower, where before the Sierra I was closer to 3 miles per hour. Now I'm hiking, depending on the incline, 2 to 2.5, and definitely taking more breaks, but that is okay. There's been no major landmarks along the way today, so Jocelyn, Vicky, Cole, and I have all been kind of doing our own thing, just seeing each other off and on. All our break schedules are kind of all variable, so seeing each other off and on with the plan to camp together tonight. Down there is Owens Valley, which is apparently where LA gets a lot of its water from through the LA Aqueduct. Thankfully, only 1 mile left until camp, which again will be a 19.1 mile day, and I am wiped. So the elevation change today hasn't been that bad. It's only been like 4,500 feet or so, which we've done worse and did worse a couple days before Kenny Meadows. But in the Sierra, we definitely have to adjust our mileage and expect lower mileage and slower pace days. I honestly don't know if the daily elevation change will become a thing or an issue later on. Probably will, certain days when we do high passes or like Mount Whitney. But more so, what I think is affecting me is not only the heavy pack, but also the elevation itself. Makes it really hard to catch your breath. Feels like something is sitting on my chest, and that is making me tired. So 1 mile left, and then I get to finally relax for the day and look forward to an easier day tomorrow. I think this is probably the longest mileage day we're gonna do in this stretch, because tomorrow we plan, it's about 12 miles to Chicken Lake, which is the first lake in the high Sierras, and then we'll either hang out there for most of the day and camp, or decide to move on a few miles in the evening. But I'm gonna get back to focusing on this last mile. Got to the campsite and right away, before I relax so I can just get it done with, I am walking the side trail to water. Hopefully it's less than a quarter mile or so, but I hear it's through a meadow and the mosquitoes are bad. Yesterday we didn't have to carry more than 1 liter at a time. Today we did have a water carry of 7.5 miles, so that I feel a little bit gypped by the Sierra. But another thing that's been making this hard is that my hiker hunger is really kicking in. All I can think about is the food I'm gonna eat when I'm in town. Like, I could really devour some Taco Bell, some McDonald's right now, probably eat a whole large pizza by myself. And I could eat 2 days worth of food that I've packed for the trail in 1 day. But I can't, because I need that for the next day's food
And so for the next stretch in this year, I'm going to figure out how I can be more creative, because my bear canister is truly maxed out. I can't fit more than 6 days in it. So I'm going to have to be more creative with finding more calorie-dense food to eat, or how to repackage it or something, so that I can still fit 6 days of food in there, but even more food than I have, because I feel like I could devour everything in sight. Good morning from day 26. I'm slept in today and doing a little bit later start. It is 6:30 getting on trail. The good thing about today is we have 12.5 miles to Chicken Lake, or Chicken Spring Lake, and there we're gonna hang out for a long part of the day. Probably camp there, because it's the first leg. It's pictures say it's beautiful, show it's beautiful, and from there we only have 15 to 16 miles to get to the approach trail to Whitney, which we'll do in 2 days. I didn't even need to get started this early, but honestly it's a little bit cold, so I wanted to get going. I didn't feel the cold at night at all, so I have a dedicated pair of sleep clothes, long sleeve and long pants. And with that, with my 10-degree sleeping bag, which I didn't have closed up all the way, I was perfectly warm at night. My thermometer right now says it's about 48-ish degrees, although I take that with a grain of salt because I don't know how accurate it is. When Cole got to camp last night, he commented that he was also feeling exhausted from the afternoon, so I wasn't alone in that. And Vicky and Jocelyn must have felt the same because they didn't make it to camp last night, and camped a little bit earlier. But my bag is feeling a little bit lighter today because I have 2 days less of food, and just an easy over the next 12.5 miles is only 2,000 feet gain, and it looks more gradual than it was yesterday, so that is awesome. Not any views right now, but here is the trail. This morning so far has been pretty easy cruising, flat, a little bit downhill. And I was feeling good about today because we only had 2,000 feet climb to Chicken Spring Lake. But I mean, you can hear me breathing. The moment we start going uphill, barely been going uphill for like 100 feet, and already it's hard to catch your breath. Oh my god. Last night, the campsite was at like 10,200 feet elevation, and Chicken Spring Lake is at 11,200. And I'm really hoping the difficulty breathing at altitude we'll get used to after a while. Otherwise, it's gonna be annoying to deal with this for the next 3 weeks. I mean, being in the Sierra is well worth it. Seeing all this beauty is well worth it. But I hope we start to adjust. Just sitting here 7.1 miles into the day. I didn't really plan to stop here. I wanted to go another 1.4 miles till 8.5 miles into the day to the water source, where I plan to sit down for at least half hour, an hour and rest. But my back started hurting, so I just needed a pack break. I don't want to ignore that and make my back hurt worse. So I'm just going to sit here for 5-10 minutes put on my pack and do the next 1.4 miles. Just leaving my break spot at Poison Meadow Spring. The water is not poisonous. Whoever named the springs in this area was just having fun, because yesterday there was, I think it was Death Canyon Creek or something like that. But there are some some gray clouds up above, and we checked the weather on the Garmin, and there is a 60% chance of storm today, 80% tomorrow. So before I got up, I rainproofed my stuff. So I have two different garbage bags that are really thick. One I put all my sleep stuff in, so sleeping bag, sleep clothes, pad, pillow, and the other one I put everything else in my bag in, which included my bear canister, my electronics, which are in their own dry sack, and then my warm clothes. And then on top of that, outside the garbage bags, is my tent, which is in its own waterproof bag, my rain jacket, and then an extra stuff sack. The stuff sack that used to hold my food before using the bear canister, and so I can use that for my phone, cards, important papers, things like that, if it does start to rain. But fingers crossed, it just blows right over. I am heading back up to the trail now. So we were at the lake. I had just jumped into the water, and then a little bit after that, like 5-10 minutes later, maybe 15, the gray clouds started turning darker and it started thundering. So Cole and I quickly packed up and tried to find a little bit better area to take cover. We're kind of in a tough place where elevation didn't get lower for about 6 or 7 miles up head on trail. But anyways, we went downhill off trail just about 0.1 miles, which got us down about 200 to 300 feet and back with some trees. We set up our tents and just camped out for about 2.5 hours. It did hail a little bit, thundered, and of course rained. So we just hung out in the tents
There are finally blue skies up above us and the sun is back out. So we're gonna head back up to the lake. We had seen Jocelyn there, and hopefully Vicky arrived or will be shortly for us to talk about what we want to do, if we want to spend our night at the lake or move on a little bit further.